if we fast forward now to, we've both finished university. It's the summer of 2019. We're bright-eyed, ready to start our careers in investment banking. It even felt like Jordan Belfort in Wolf of Wall Street.
I don't know if you guys watched
just
that,
get to Wall Street, you're ready. You meet your whole cohort, and let's talk about that very first day. You walk through those doors, and you're now an investment banking analyst in training.
I wouldn't say it hit, just because you really didn't. I think we're going to touch on that. You don't really know. You have an idea what you're getting to. Obviously, the internships were quite good indicators. But yeah, just talk on the first time. I think I was just excited. There was an element of nerves, I'll be honest, but I was just excited. My priorities weren't necessarily on the exams and the job. It was more kind of getting the most out of training and getting the most out of our international trips. I'd say taking back to that experience, I was keen to know the people around me, to know the people that were going to be training me, because I think that's quite important, because those are the fundamental skills, especially for us coming from non-traditional degrees. Those skills were important for us to take in.
But I'd like to pull out the first real top key and a top do that we have for incoming investment banking analysts. So right off the bat, when you start that training program, there's a huge emphasis on networking, getting to know who you're going to be working with for 14 to 16 to maybe even more hours a day, and getting the most out of it. So we came from engineering backgrounds. Sometimes the best way to learn is through asking questions to your peers. 100%. You want to shake as many hands as possible, get to know people, and it will really help you along the line. So fast forward to the first week of training, it was something that was quite familiar to me from internships. We had the basic Excel training. They teach us shortcuts. We'd go through some basic financial accounting before we took the flight to Toronto. And I'd say the first thing that was going through my mind was just trying to be a sponge. Show it to HR, show it to the people around you that you're asking questions, you're curious. And I think that goes a long way into your training 100%, program.
Yeah, and just to echo that, I said, make sure you learn as much as possible. These are key skills you're going to need throughout the job. But also your network is your net worth. And what I mean by that is, some of these people, there was different experiences. Some people came quite highly experienced. So they kind of knew what was going on. They'd studied finance, and, I guess the training element wasn't as important to them as it was to us. But it was important to make that network, because these guys could help us. They can help us the tips and tricks. What's important, what you need to know to pass the exam, what are the key skills you need to really focus in, and how do you kind of learn this as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
And I'd say a nice path for us to take is, we've now left London after a week of training. Everyone's met up at the airport. We're taking our flight to Toronto, and we've checked in at the hotel. So how would you describe that experience when you walked into your hotel room for the first time?
That was different. That was euphoric. I couldn't keep my cool. The first thing I'm thinking is, I'm in a different country, Snapchat, Instagram, I'm thinking of my pictures. Listen, you're excited, right? You're pretty young, you've just come out of university, and you're sign on, you've got like a sign on which, we'll be quite transparent. It was around, was it £10,000?
Yep.
Just shy, around that. This is like a significant bit of money you've been given. This is just for kind of signing the contract. Obviously, you got relocation fees and stuff like that. But there was no relocation. We were in a hotel, free of charge.
To summarize that point, I would definitely agree and say, whilst you're going to have a good amount of capital that's entered your bank account, you're going to be staying in a very nice location. It's important to stay level-headed. Remain humble. Remember why you're there for training, but don't overly do that. Don't take it way too serious. At the end of the day, like Sol rightly said, you're in a new city. Try your best to actually enjoy that training process.
Of course,
a lot of people can treat it as an exam that they just want to study every single night. But before you know it, you're going to be in the office working 12 to 16 hour days. Okay guys, so moving on to the next set of do's and don'ts that we have for you in your first year of investment banking, things that we picked up along the way. The first thing, again, it relates right back to training. So pass those exams. That's the key. When you go into investment banking and M&A, it varies bank by bank, but the chances are you're going to sit an exam in corporate finance. So that will involve regulatory papers and a corporate finance technical paper. So would you like to give them a bit more detail about that? Just walk them through the process.
So as I mentioned earlier, in order to provide financial advice or any form of advice, you've got to be FCA approved, so that's the Financial Conduct Authority. And so in order to be approved, the way they measure it is by giving us these exams. Now, Yeah, the information actually is, you're told this information prior to joining. So just to signpost, I'll probably say the first and most important thing is do your due diligence before you actually go on the training. Because these are exams that you have to fit, they tell you have to sit at the end of the sessions of the training. So end of the training we did in Toronto. But people often forget because you're thrown with other things. This is separate from the actual investment banking training you have and the networking. So yeah, these are 2 exams you have to sit. There's kind of a benchmark pass. So it's not really a score. It's just a score you have to achieve. And yeah, I would say definitely it's important to pass them. And then the final thing I'd say is just the questions. Do as many questions. Real life examination questions for me are the best form of learning because there's so much information. I don't know if you found it, but there was an overwhelming amount of information which I don't think was relevant to exam, relevant for your understanding, but I'd say focus on passing. You don't want to be in a situation, a few of our candidates kind of didn't pass, and so whilst they were on the job, they were spending weekends, which you barely had weekends, to pass these exams, because you get in some cases 2 or 3 goes and then you lose your job. So remember that it's important to try and pass first time. You don't want the stress of doing it, you know, whilst you're on the job, because that's like an impossible task and it's just going to make something which is already stressful even more stressful.
One of the exciting processes that you'll go through as a first year analyst before you actually reach your desk is a networking process where you will meet your team. And this often involves a number of discussions with people who are analyst associates, perhaps all the way up to a vice president in the various coverage groups in the investment bank. This is your chance to ask all of the questions on the nature of the work that you deal with, the types of products that that team works with. And I think it's an extremely important decision. So I ended up going for consumer, retail and leisure as a sector of focus. I did that because it was in line with my outside business interests and just general interest in terms of business, the types of companies that I followed. And I think it was a good choice for me, despite not actually having experience doing this in internships. So be very attentive to all of those questions. Make sure you speak to as many teams as possible. Don't just go for the big names like Levin just because. Make sure you go for the team that's best for you, really. Pass on to Sol.
In terms of my decision, I think my experiences led my decision more so than me. I think looking back, I probably would have favoured a team that would have helped me more long term. So I probably would have liked to have gone to a consumer, for example, or technology, media and telecoms. But I ended up going to healthcare, investment banking. I didn't realize how hard they work. They have a culture of working extremely hard. It varies bank by bank, but generally healthcare is quite intense, and also it's quite technical, not just from a corporate finance sense, but also the way the industry is regulated. Make sure your teams know the hours you're going to work, because you're working hard, but you want to make sure you have some sort of balance.
Exactly. That's an extremely important point, and I'll piggyback on that. Knowing your hours, being able to work those hours and not burning out, that's the key theme in the investment banking. The buzzword is always mental health, sustainability. So a major tip that we have for you guys is to remember always it's a marathon, not a race.
100%.
You've got 5 days in a week. You need to pace yourself. Some days, fair enough, you may need to stay the extra few hours. It might take you to 1 a.m. But I personally find that if you get in the routine of doing that quite often,
100%.
you can start to see your health deteriorate. Your work quality is detrimental, and people in your team will start to pick that up. In investment banking, especially as an analyst, one of the key things that's extremely important in terms of your grading is accuracy. Can you complete a piece of work without making silly errors? Do your numbers make sense? And trust me, it's a lot harder to do that when you're tired, running on 4 hours of sleep.
Probably one of the most important points is endurance. It's not a race, it's a marathon. I think it's really, really important to understand it from the start. A couple of our colleagues came in studying really hard for the training, which is fine. Make sure you pass your exams. But if you start working as hard in training, where you're only doing 9 to 5 and you're going out, when you now start doing 9 to 12, it'll be hard to sustain that level of intensity. And Demi can share with you a lot more, because he's been, like myself, he's been through the whole cycle. So yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Definitely echo what Sol just said. Guys, at the end of the day, you know what you've signed up for investment banking. It's going to be one of the more laborious jobs out there in the corporate sector. The expectation sometimes is to work at least 60 to 80 hours a week. At the end of the day, you've got vice presidents, executive directors that have all done that. So you need to be able to find a way to cope with that. Sol was someone who is really into fitness, and that was his way out. Myself, whilst I was also into fitness, I just enjoyed other things like just going out, meeting up with friends. And I definitely would say, you need to be able to prioritize your work very efficiently, but not at the detriment of your health and your social life. Do you know what I mean?
Whatever your interest is, try as much to prioritize it, because it's all about your mental health and mental journey throughout the process. Like I said, lack of sleep, your focus and your hormones are going to act differently. But if you do something you enjoy, whatever it is, and give time to that, that's your time. You're entering a challenging job, so as long as you can kind of prioritize your work, but also keep time for you to relax, whether it's on the weekends or the off time, you do get some time, it's going to stand you in good stead, because eventually you will get through the analyst years and become associate. Depending on your teams, your workload might get different, or I wouldn't say necessarily easier, different. And yes, investment banking is hot and cold. Like when you're on a deal period, expect really, really intense hours. It's like 7 days a week sometimes, which we've done. But when it's more marketing and it's more quiet, say in the summer, for example, you just close a transaction, you go to the closing dinner, then you can have a bit more time, leave the office a lot more earlier and focus on activities that you enjoy.
Exactly. And I think something that's also important for first years and junior analysts in investment bank to remember is why you're there in the first place. Don't just think in the moment and be like, oh my gosh, I wish I could be out. You have to think about the rewards and benefits this career can offer you down the line when you're 8, 9, 10 years into your career. At the end of the day, the reason why you're working so hard is because of the speed of your learning. Something that might take an investment banking analyst 2 to 3 years to learn might only be achieved after 5 years in another corporate career. 100%. So having that long-term focus is a major key as well, guys.
Yeah, think long-term, understand why you're there, have a set goal before you go in, and kind of just take every day as it comes, because if people often leave the career after a couple of years, a lot of people after 2 years go to private equity, super high paid, some people go to corporates. So the exit options are amazing, just make sure you get through the race.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that explored the exit options. I decided to go back to something that was a bit more sustainable for me work-wise and would allow me to do things like Corpfit alongside my job. So, don't feel like you have to stay in this forever, or, you have to take that extremely long approach. Utilize the career for the benefits and what you can achieve from it, and be flexible, be able and agile to move on and seek those new opportunities.
So guys, it's been a fantastic conversation and I really hope you've appreciated it. Just giving a few gems, a few of our insights and the do's and don'ts, what you should do, and just generally our story. Be sure to follow him on his socials, I'll have it here. And also Corpfit, it's a great movement in which he's basically getting a lot of corporate experience and bringing it to the table in an accessible way. So he's got amazing things he's doing, definitely check that out. And as you know guys, your boy Life has Sold, a bodybuilding banker. I hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to comment, like and subscribe, and catch you in the next video.
Be sure to follow Solomon on all of his socials. He's the bodybuilding banker, and I know a lot of you are into fitness as I am myself. And there'll be plenty of content along the way. Let us know what you'd like to see in the comments as well. We'll be sure to be right here for you again, producing more content and helping you in your corporate journeys. So hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.